So good morning, everyone. I trust that yesterday was a full enough day for everyone, and I think got us off to an incredible start. So I would like to begin by expressing my gratitude for all the warm wishes and the messages that so many of you have shared over this conference in recognition with me last night. And so please know of my sincere appreciation for your ongoing support and prayers. It is now my pleasure to welcome to the podium Catholic Charities USA's Episcopal Liaison, Bishop David Zubik of the Diocese of Pittsburgh. Bishop Zubik serves as the official representative of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops to the Catholic Charities USA Board of Trustees. He has served in this role for the past year and has shown a great commitment to strengthening our agency's mission and work in serving as the hands of Christ to those in need. We are grateful for his service and for his time with us here yesterday and today. And so please join me in welcoming His Excellency, Bishop David Zubik.
Well, good morning, everybody. Larry, thank you for the wonderful introduction, and Linda for your very strong leadership. First of all, I need to say that it really is a delight for me to share a few thoughts with all of you this morning. And as a matter of fact, truly I am honored to become the Episcopal Liaison to Catholic Charities USA. I will do my very best to follow in the huge footsteps of Bishop Michael Driscoll, who served you for the better part of the last 11 years. At the same time, I pledge to continue to build on the solid relationship between Catholic Charities USA and the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. I like bridges. Pittsburgh is a city of bridges. The town I grew up in is Ambridge, so named after the United States steel factory called the American Bridge Company. And so I look forward to being a bridge from you to my brother bishops in our country and from them to you. Father Larry Snyder has been an incredible friend to our bishops, and I seek in my capacity as Episcopal Liaison to be a good friend to you and the work of Catholic Charities USA as well. Finally, given the fact that Sister Linda, President of the Board, Sister Melanie DePietro, Special Legal Advisor and Counsel to the Board, Alexis Weber, who last night won the recognition as the Outstanding Volunteer of the Year, and myself as Episcopal Liaison are all from Pittsburgh, I can assure you that there is no hostile takeover in the works, but maybe a friendly one. Well, as any of you who are fans of the comic section of the newspaper, or as my dad used to say, the funnies, you know all about Peanuts. Peanuts was the creation of Charles Schulz. Schulz was profiled some time ago in the PBS American Master series. One part of the program included snippets from an interview that Schulz had given on the Today Show as his comic strip was concluding. Some of you may remember that Charles Schulz was dying of cancer, and in fact would die on February 12, 2000, the day before his last original comic strip would appear. In the interview on PBS, Charlie Schulz was asked about one of the ongoing gags of the strip, where Lucy would always pull the football away just as Charlie Brown was about to kick it. At one time, Schulz had said that he could never let Charlie Brown kick that ball. He would say that would be a terrible disservice to him after nearly a half century. But in that PBS interview, just before he died, Charlie Schulz said something completely different when he repeated the question asked of him. Why didn't I ever let that little kid kick the ball? He mused slowly and then was very quiet. Looking down and away from the camera, he began to cry. He was crying because he recognized that he failed to help Charlie Brown. How much it would have meant to Charlie if he could have kicked that football even just once. Charlie Schultz was a Sunday school teacher when he began to do Peanuts cartoon, but he later abandoned his faith. In the late 1980s, he said, "I don't go to church anymore. I guess you might say that I've come around to secular humanism, an obligation I believe that all humans have to others and the world we live in," which sets up a dichotomy between religious faith and service to humanity, as if somehow one was opposed to the other. Charlie Schultz was smarter than that. I'd like to think that towards the end of his life, he fought the good fight and was coming full circle back to faith. Only a believer could be so upset that he never let good old Charlie Brown kick that ball. He was at the heart of it all, someone who wanted to help others. Our mission together in Catholic Charities USA is clearly to help others. We do so in the recognition of how our faith must serve our sisters and brothers, all of our sisters and brothers, regardless of their religious persuasion, their nationality, or their gender. There is no separation of the two. Our faith does not allow us to be unengaged with our world, to look down from the mountaintop or huddle together as some kind of remnant outside the fray of life. Our faith tells us that if I speak in human and angelic tongues, but do not have love, I am a resounding gong or a clashing cymbal. Faith, hope, and love remain, but the greatest of these is love. Faith, if it does not have works, is dead. You and I come together these days in this gathering in the midst of so many people whom we seek to serve, people who are crying out to be noticed, to be helped, to be embraced. Our commandment to our servanthood, our faith-based service to humanity, isn't somehow limited by our firm belief in the next life as Charlie Schultz proposed. Rather, it is rooted in it. What may be limited is how much we are able to accomplish. You and I know that our efforts on behalf of the poor will not eradicate poverty. We know that our dedication to education does not mean that every child will grow into adulthood with a complete grasp of the faith. We know that our pro-life efforts may not eradicate abortion or put an end to euthanasia, but our faith doesn't call us to a victory defined by human terms. Our faith calls us to selfless service one day at a time, one person at a time, as dear Mother Teresa would often reflect, as pencils in the hand of God. We continue in our efforts as Catholic Charities because it is who we are as disciples of Jesus Christ, not because we expect a parade at the end of the day or even that our efforts will be noticed. We do our serving because people need to be served. More important, we do our serving because God wants us, calls us to be servants. We serve with faith, hope, and love. We serve with enthusiasm and the excitement of our faith. The need to serve is always there. The world will always need Christ, and in turn, He will always need us to be His servants. And when our time is done, someone else will take up the banner, and so too when their time is done. This is the great challenge for all of us involved in Catholic Charities USA, a people who are motivated by faith. The poor keep coming, the needy are still in need. Remember what Jesus said? You will always have the poor with you. With that statement, Jesus was not dismissing the poor, but acknowledging that our mission to the poor must always be forefront and center. Despair and hopelessness can overcome us if we do not or cannot view our ministry from the perspective of eternity, of carrying on the work of Jesus as women and men, disciples of today's gospel. With faith and its lens on eternity, we can bring the understanding of the cardinal virtues to our ministry. Remember them? Prudence, temperance, fortitude, and justice. Prudence is the virtue of finding the true good in everything we face and pursuing it in kindness and truth. Temperance is our understanding of not only what we want to achieve, but what is possible to achieve, and never confusing the one with the other. Fortitude is being true to the faith in good times and bad, and being constant in the pursuit of the good. Fortitude is Christian courage lived. And finally, justice. Justice is the virtue of not only defining ourselves by our Christian beliefs, but by living in concert with them. Biblical justice, purity said, is possessing the mind and the heart of God. When you and I bring these cardinal ministries to our service, we remember not only whom we serve, but how we serve those whom we serve. Blessed Mother Teresa of Calcutta left us so many wonderful stories that challenge our generosity to others. She told us through example to give unselfishly to the poor in the harshest of circumstances. She could say that because she saw Christ in every person whom she met. One man she recalled, and many of you may have heard this story before, was foul-mouthed, giving her sisters a terrible time. He threw food, cursed at anyone who tried to help him, and after one particularly excruciating night with him, the nuns grew more and more exasperated. They went to complain to Mother Teresa and asked that the man be shown the door from their home. At which point Mother Teresa simply said, well, that was Christ in one of his more cantankerous moods. In one of his more deliberate moments, Jesus retreated to a mountain and sat down to rest. His disciples came to him, and he started to teach. He blessed those poor in spirit, those who mourn, the humble, the merciful, the peacemakers, and the pure. He blessed the poor and those who worked with them. He blessed those seeking justice and those who worked for justice. He didn't promise them answers in the world, and he most assuredly promised them no great victories, no successes in this life. But he did promise them this much, that after all is said and done, when they hunger and thirst for righteousness, they shall be satisfied. Nearing the end of his public ministry, Jesus told his disciples of that time when the Son of Man would come. He would divide all the people into two groups, like a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. To the sheep on his right, he tells them why they are blessed and why they will enter God's kingdom. For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you cared for me. In prison and you visited me. The good souls asked him when they had done this, and the Son of Man answered, whenever you do this for one of these least sisters and brothers, you did it for me. That's living the faith. That's sharing the faith in action. This leads me to share with you one of my favorite stories about a priest and a soap salesman. When they were in high school, these two men were the very best of friends. But as happens to so many of us in life, once they graduated, they lost track of each other. So now here they were, 25 years later, back in their hometown, for their silver high school reunion, the soap salesman and this priest. As they took advantage of the time for a stroll, the soap salesman, having become something of a cynic, couldn't believe that his best high school buddy had become a priest. He said, "Tom, with all your talents, why would you have become a priest? What a waste. There's still a lot of sin and still a lot of sinners in the world." To which Tom said nothing. Shortly afterwards, the two men passed a playground. There in a sandbox was a little girl covered with mud. Tom, the priest, said to Frank, the salesman, "Frank, I can't understand why you ever became a soap salesman. There's still a lot of dirt and still a lot of dirty people in the world." To which Frank responded and said, "But the soap is meant to be used." To which Tom said, and the same is true of faith. It must be lived. That's the pilgrimage that you and I are on, living our faith as servant leaders. Our goal and our vocation, as Alexis told us last night, our call is to be servants. We share the gifts we have in any way that we can, no matter what those gifts and talents that each of us most assuredly has. When we share them, we share of ourselves and of our faith, realizing that, like the soap salesman's friend, we live our faith. Not many of us will change the world by our actions, but the choices we make in our daily lives affect the world in ways we may never know. The work that you and I are involved in, that you and I are dedicated to as members of Catholic Charities USA, is the opportunity to do good and to do it in the name of Jesus. 35 years ago, it was God's plan for my life that I serve in one of our diocesan high schools as both vice principal and religion teacher. Each day in the academic course which I taught, entitled Christian Lifestyles, I attempted to tap into the lives of high school seniors about what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. During the course of the one semester class, in its 18 weeks, I tried to help my students get ready for the rest of their lives, whether they would end up being called by God to be a wife or a husband, a single woman or a single man, or a sister or a brother or a deacon or a priest. But I have to tell you quite honestly, the most important lesson I taught in the class came in the last day. The message that I attempted to give my students was this: more important than anything I have ever taught you during the course of this semester, if there's only one thing I want you to remember, it's this. If you're going to be serious about Jesus, make sure that you treat every person whom you meet as if they are Jesus, and make sure that you treat every single person whom you meet as if you are Jesus. Teresa of Avila said pretty much the same thing some 400 years earlier when she wrote, "Christ has no body now on earth but yours, no hands but yours, no feet but yours. Yours are the eyes through which the compassion of Christ must look out onto the world. Yours are the feet with which he is going about doing good. Yours are the hands with which he is able to bless his people." My sisters and brothers, no question about it, that's our response in Catholic Charities USA. Unlike Charlie Schultz, we can't let the kid kick the ball. We can't let those whom we serve soar with the freedom and knowledge that they are loved and cherished, embraced and released from the shackles and burdens of life that bind them. My sisters and brothers, what a humbling privilege it is to stand with you these days. Thank you for all that you do. And please remember, nothing is impossible with God. God bless you all.